Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, and new episodes are released most Wednesdays. So back off, man. We're professionals. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello, and welcome once again to the New Way podcast. We break down pop culture so you don't have to. I am your host, Matt Shank, joined by the magic of the internet by Mr. Benny Dubs.
Or my wife's name, as it says on our Zoom call.
That's right. You're just masquerading as E. Wilson. And, of course, Sir Nicky P. How's it going, Nicky?
My name is on my Zoom box. Don't have to share with nobody.
Yeah, but it's
because I'm all alone.
Yeah, but how come it's separated? How come Santa Croce is two words there? Are you the real? Which is the real Santa Croce?
That's a fair point. I mean, I spell it without a space, but my other family members spell it differently. I know it's weird. Oh, my birth certificate is hyphenated. Who knows? Who knows, Matt, is the real answer to that question.
That's kind
Who
of
is the real Santa Croce?
Yeah, I like that there should be, like, when you guys have the Santa Croce Civil War, that'll be all the factions will be the different spellings and usages of the last name.
Not going to be as entertaining as the Marvel film.
No. I did want to, just as we get started here, just a little bit of sad news for some of our listeners and for us, but we did lose Mr. Hoot Gibson last week, and he, if you guys have not listened to the two Bandera episodes, I think it's like episode 13 and 16. They're way back. That's back in the olden days when we recorded in my living room with Ben and me and a giant microphone between us that we shared. But we did a couple of podcasts with Hoot. We've mentioned him a few times on the air. He is oddly enough responsible for probably in my top, I'd say, 5 moments of the podcast he has, and it's the one I wanted to play just because this makes me laugh. But we were when I was out there recording, I was trying to get kind of interesting sound bites from him, so I posited if he had to have like a man, he doesn't know the idea of like man crush, but I was basically like, if you had to be with a man, like any man, who would you pick? And this was his alarming response. So Hoot, you are forced, for whatever reason.
And I'm supposed to go out and have a good time with this guy?
Yes. A very good time.
Yeah, really?
That's easy. Hell, Michael Strahan. Ain't no way out of it.
Oh, my God.
I know I'd fit right in with something like that.
I don't even know where to begin with that one, but that was not what I was expecting on that. All right, well.
No, he's got it. He's... I know he's all man and he's real. And he's a football star and he's got lots of knowledge. He's got lots of everything. I know one thing. If we ever got in a fight, I'd have to outrun him.
It's just those pearly whites, man. Michael Strahan, just slaying,
absolutely legendary,
slaying hearts.
The hardest I ever heard anyone laugh in our office when I worked at Native Remedies was Greg Klein listening to this in his headphones in the middle of the workday and just like howling laughter. But yeah, so wanted to say vaya con Dios to Hoot. It was a very memorable part of the podcast, and he will absolutely be missed.
I really wish I could have met him, but I feel like I have already, which I think is a testament to Hoot.
I think his
honestly, you what you got, like, who was exactly what he presented. I mean, he was nothing if not himself. So like, it's pretty clear, like, from listening to the sound bites and stuff like that. Like, I met him and I was like, well, he's exactly what I expected him to be. on the occasions that I was able to hang out with him.
And I think he'll be very pleased to know that Paul was thinking of him, because Paul did sing "Purtier Than a Songbird." And,
Not prettier, but purtier.
Also,
Purtier than a songbird.
Also the veiled like the backhanded compliment of like, he didn't care what anybody thought about it, which is kind of amazing.
Which is kind of the exact opposite of reality.
Yeah, exactly. I do also want to share a very quick story with you gentlemen. I've told this to a couple of my friends, and they said that this was worth telling on the air. So I do have exciting personal news for me. I got cast in a show this week. I went to auditions last week for the first time, and
I thought you had to be from down under to get cast in the Thunder.
There it is. No, it's actually fake. I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever accent I do a great Australian. So I was incredibly nervous to go to this audition last week. It's been 20 years. I'm not super confident, and it was for a musical, which is not, as those of you who've listened to any of our musical episodes know, is not maybe my number one skill. So I decided, I was like, maybe I need like a little like CBD oil or something to just like calm my nerves, might help me out. So I had these gummies that I used like sometimes to help me go to sleep that were it was Delta 8 and Delta 9 like combination. It was like a 5-to-1 combination. And the guy at the vape shop, who I trusted, was like, "Oh, these are just like these will help you like kind of relax." I was like, "Oh, that's good." So I had been taking these at night and not, obviously I was going to sleep and didn't notice a whole lot. And the day before the audition, I took one, but I was just like sitting around watching TV and not doing anything. And it felt maybe a little like there was like a peak moment of a little lightheadedness, and then that went away. So I was like, okay, as long as I just time it so that moment happens, after I'm supposed to go to this audition, it's great. So anyway, I take the gummy. I've been like training my voice all day, used a nebulizer, like but I'm like shaking, panicked. So it gets to 6:00, like, okay, get in the car, I drive. I turn onto 6th Avenue, which is the exit for Lake Worth, and about 2 seconds after I turn onto it, something kicks in like extreme hardcore, to the point at which
you enter the Matrix.
My first thought was like, how like sometimes you're driving and you're not really thinking about it, and then you're like, oh, like I missed my turn, or I kind of, you sort of zone out even though you're functioning with the car. I did that times 1,000, to where I was like, I don't know what road I'm on. I don't remember if I took 95 or if I went like another route or whatever. I don't recognize this road. I don't think it's right. There should be a checkers there. Is there a checkers there? I don't know if there's a checkers. And now I realize, like, now the synapses are firing and that I'm fixating on the stuff. I'm like,
you're like, checkers would be good. How about
well, I was just like, I'm
onion rings.
2 minutes from the theater. I'm literally 2 minutes from the theater at this point, and I'm just like, my brain is broken. So I get to the theater. I park outside. I've got time, so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna sit in the car and put the music for my temp track on there and mess around.
Was it Fish? Were you listening to Fish?
Yeah, all of a sudden I wanted like 13 minutes of like jam band nonsense music that
for some reason
it just goes into circles. So I get my stuff, I walk in, and I'm like, what I realized sort of after the fact is,
did you apply your patchouli oil before you?
No, but I did. I hit like the worst turn of this as I walk into the room, and I'm like, I've got a resume built out, and they go, oh, and we have this intake form, and I go, in my head I should have just been like, oh, can I give you the resume instead? So I'm just like, no, I'll take the intake form, and this intake form is like the last several shows you've done and name and address and whatever. And then also they put a board up of all of these, the audition schedule. And it's like, you need to tell us tonight whatever conflicts you have for the next 3 months. So I have all of this work to do. I am like shaking uncontrollably. I'm so nervous, and whatever this thing has done to my brain, I start writing, and I like literally, it was a chore. Like I couldn't figure out the order of the letters and like how they went together, and I knew what they should say, but I wasn't sure that's what I was writing on this sheet, and not being able to stay in the line, like it was terrible. So I fill it out, I get into them, and like I sat down the stairs, and I literally started just doing like breathing exercises because I was my brain was at like peak. And so I go to look up what this thing is that I took, which I thought was just like a light CBD thing. And and Delta 8, Delta 9 is like microdosing. It's not bad. But apparently When you combine the two, it's a whole other effect that you go for. So this is what they say on their website. Why you want it. Psychoactive effect that will promote a feeling of intense euphoria, calmness, and increased creativity. I felt zero of those things, but it definitely had an intense heightening of my anxiety that was like in the garden. And then it says why you
because you hadn't planned for it. You hadn't specifically consumed them for the effect.
I just
of
wanted
euphoria.
to not be freaked out, and it just amplified being freaked out. And it's like on the site it literally says highly potent gummies. I gave this to one of our friends who partakes in this quite a bit, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that was an intense." And the peak is 3 hours in. And then and then it's over. And once I got past it, I was still nervous there, but it eventually, I could function. But there were moments where just motor function was difficult for me, and I did not think it would be attainable.
Well, maybe in this modern retelling of Guys and Dolls, what they were looking for is a stoner, Cheech Marin type Nathan Detroit.
That's what my friend Adrian was like. Did you read for them again after the thing? I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh, thank God, because they probably. He goes, maybe the first night you were in there, you were just some other guy, and I'm like, yeah, that could have been it.
And then Neil Patrick Harris showed up, all hopped up on cocaine.
It's got a really interesting read on 1940s gangster Nathan Detroit.
Oh my God!
Fantastic.
That's pretty awesome.
How was
hopped up on those jazz cigarettes?
By the way, how was last night? Was Halloween? I saw Ben for a little bit last night, and quite impressed by the Freddie Mercury outfit. But how was the rest of your trick or treating?
Nick did it first many times.
I was also Freddie Mercury.
Nick and I went to see the Queen movie with Nick dressed as Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, it's true. And a fake mustache, if you can believe it. It's the one time I haven't had a mustache for a themed event.
I figure all I have is I have to rock them. If I have the mustache, I have to use it for something.
But you had you had the Live Aid. It was the Live Aid Freddy.
It was Live Aid Freddy.
I was the Wembley Freddy
with the mic stand. That's
you gotta
have
key.
It. That's the key.
Live Aid Freddy. I had the all the way down to the Adidas.
Well, luckily, I mean, if they hadn't dropped Kanye a second later, you may have had to done Freddie
You'd have
Mercury
to put Freddie Mercury with Skechers.
Yeah, Skechers.
Right.
My favorite story of that whole fallout is that Kanye West, the day after getting dropped by Adidas, shows up unannounced. And here's the thing: this would be embarrassing enough if he had a proper meeting at Skechers, but he didn't. He just walked in. The receptionist thought he was a gardener because of his avant-garde fashion boots. Let him in, and they had to kick that motherfucker out of Skechers HQ.
I had until the day after I watched it, because they did an SNL sketch about it. The day after I watched it, I didn't know that it had happened. So I saw the SNL sketch, and I'm like, this is brilliant. And then when I found out it was real, I was like, oh, this is beyond brilliant.
Art imitating life, Matthew.
Right.
Holy shit. It's so great.
The only thing that would have been more hilarious is LA Lights. Do they still make LA Lights?
With the LA Light, there was the...
Reebok makes LA Lights, or they did,
okay.
I thought. Yeah.
All right.
Or BK. Some BK nights. Do you remember the BK nights?
What's crazy is remember how LA Lights were super big when we were in high school, and then there was a long period of dormancy where they just did not exist.
Right, they were uncool.
Then all of a sudden, 4 years ago, they just got really cool again, and all of a sudden, kids were wearing LA Lights all over the place.
Basically, Halloween is the LA Lights of holidays. It was cool when they first came out when you were a kid.
I don't know.
Well, I was in the middle of a brilliant analogy.
All right.
LA Lights are the shoes that have the little see-through rubber in the heel. When you make contact with the ground, little LED lights inside light up.
I think I was beyond this time. I think I was after this time. I was after LA Lights.
Did you have a variety of light up shoes?
Like when I was real little? I don't know.
Well, I mean, okay. During your formative years.
I was a BK Nights guy, so that was it was whatever was cheaper than whatever the thing you think is the cheapest sneaker.
What is that?
Yeah, when you said BK Nights, it's like it feels like
British Knights. British Knights was the brand of sneakers.
It sounds like the marketing team for Burger King needed to put something up against Big Mac tonight.
What?
Whoa! They still make British Knights.
They like shoes.
Oh my God, Matt.
Oh my God. You can still get British Nights.
Good Lord.
You've just changed my whole life. All right, guys, we got
Are
to wrap
you
this
on
up so I
Delta
can
8
go.
right now? Did you mix gummies today,
I
Matt?
want to go buy some BK Nights, and you guys just do the podcast, and I'm going to go grab a pair. Oh, these are ugly. These are so ugly. Anywho, yeah.
Or it also sounds
Awesome.
like, if Jay-Z hadn't named his team the Nets. I know he didn't name the team the Nets, but the BK Knights, the Brooklyn Knights, the black and silver.
The Brooklyn Knights. Yeah.
That would have been a good that would have been better than Nets.
It would have been a lot better than Nets. Yeah.
I mean, I understand net is a
Yes, it's a basketball
component
thing.
of basketball, but
Also too close to Nats, which are not good.
It's like getting the Chattanooga gets a team and they could be the Chattanooga goalposts in the NFL or something. Like what? That's all you got? That's all you really?
Do you want to hear
Nets?
a really embarrassing story?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
Yes,
so
please.
growing up in the South,
I like where it's starting.
we talked about. I mean, like we obviously had like lots of bugs and stuff like that. Well, so I was confused at one point. I'm not, and obviously, I'm not going to go all the way there, but you'll understand what I'm saying. Is that
Go all the way there, Ben.
I quite often. No, you don't want me to. I quite often. They're the one on my grandparents' farm. We had really bad. Like if you were out there in shorts, then you were going to have a problem with chiggers. They get under your skin. They were really super itchy. But then we also had really bad gnat problem. Well, the problem is I combined the two. And then and at one point was running around my grandparents' farm just being like, oh man, these things are itching me so bad. And then my dad was like, what the fuck did you just say?
Oh my God.
And I was like, what did I say? I was like, they're bugs. And he was like, what? And it took a good like 20 minutes to unpack. I was probably 8 years old about what I was trying to say because my dad was like, where are you hearing this?
One of the hardest things to do is to explain to a poor innocent child what the innocent thing that they did or said is actually fucking horrible, and they never can repeat it again. It's a very delicate ballet. Yeah, I'm sure you had that moment as a parent.
The memory is burned into my fucking brain because I still remember running around my grandparents' farm just being like,
oh, Ben.
Man, these things are attacking me.
Oh, Ben.
Yeah, that is not where I thought it was going to go.
No, it could have gone 100 different terrible ways, but that wasn't the one I would have had my money on. But.
I told you it was embarrassing. It was very embarrassing. Like I said, it's burned in my brain.
I'm glad you did not go the whole way.
I told you that you were going to be glad I didn't go the whole way. Everybody knows
done
what
some
I
sort
judgment. Good judgment, Ben.
Just anytime you guys hear that just
Right.
means Ben was saying something that we can't put on the New Way podcast.
The only place you can say that word without repercussion is on Twitter.
And the New Way After Dark when it's released.
No, not allowed.
Oh, God.
Anything affiliated with the New Way. That was an Elon Musk joke because all the hate speech has risen 500% since his acquisition. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hooray for hate
or
speech.
Or believable. It's free speech, Ben.
Yay for hate speech.
I mean, for free speech. I meant free speech.
I mean, so if I wasn't going to do Freddie Mercury, which is what Beth bought me, I was going to do the Mike Lindell and just carry a pillow around everywhere.
I did like
and
that
just be
idea.
and just be a complete fucking asshat all day. So
I mean,
both
both is fun.
It would have been
Both
kind of
is
fun.
Like flamboyant rock star or just like, incompetent
Incompetent piece of human shit.
You could have fun with both roles.
Depending on
It's
getting
no
the
Nathan Detroit, but you can sink your teeth into that role.
Depending on kind of the you got to really focus on that hairstyle because otherwise he could be Jesse Ventura. I think there's a lot of crossover between the characters, so that's kind of wig and not wig.
He's Paul Bearer. He's Paul Bearer from.
He looks like Paul Bearer, but he sounds like Ventura.
Yes, it's like if you're
You
right.
combine the two of them, that's Mike. Oh my God! Do you think they had a love child back in the '80s, and that love child became Mike Lindell? You heard it here first, folks. We broke Coolio's death, and now this.
Oh my God!
God,
that is those are uncommon or not uncommon bedfellows. What do you call it? What's the term phrase?
Bedfellows, but calling it bed pillows for Mike Lindell.
Uncommon bed pillows. Is it uncommon bedfellows?
Bedfellows.
When you say it's like uncommon, something you wouldn't expect. The
They're not common bedfellows.
Uncommon bedfellows would be the. But hey,
or a ska band.
Do
you want to start a ska band called Uncommon Bedfellows?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
We can all wear checkered bands. Okay, sorry.
But funny enough, a quick Halloween story though, because I did dress up as Freddie Mercury at my office, which I went in, and of course everybody thought was pretty funny. But I was actually walking through the lobby, and so not the lobby of my office of our office, but just our main lobby in our building, and somebody in some office on the second floor just goes, "Ew," and I was like, I was just like, yes, I was like, that's fucking so great. So, but then I realized I have to stop at Walmart on the way home to pick up Sushi's medicine. Sushi's our dog, and I was like, oh man, I was like, this is gonna be probably pretty awkward. Not a single look my way. I just looked like a normal Walmart shopper in my accurate Live Aid Freddie Mercury outfit.
Screen
you got
accurate.
the wife beater. Wife beater checks out. The only thing is that the sliver armband probably wasn't too prevalent.
And the fact that I was wearing makeup. I was wearing eyeliner.
Maybe that too. The guy liner, yeah. Oh my god. Hey, listen, I can tell you, if I had $1 for every time I had to think long and hard just how badly I needed an item at a convenience store on Halloween in full costume. I mean, $37 easy. It's a decision. It's a conscious decision you have to be okay with, because I'm not going to change at the party. I mean,
right, exactly.
You have to roll out camera ready, so to speak,
but
we say in the industry.
I was like, but I was like, it was like I was invisible. I just walked through, because I also had to walk all the way across the store because I had to get lemonade. And
you bought the Invisible Man. The Invisible Man. That's a Queen deep cut.
Yeah, there you go. Wow.
Not Ralph really Ellison. Good. It's I think it's off Jazz.
Wow. That is very
deep cut.
Sorry.
So deep.
But I was the Invisible Man.
Also, look up Cool Cats. If you've not heard Queen's Cool Cats, I implore you.
Scooby-Doo-bop, bop-a-doo-bop.
Yeah.
That's it. Moving on to our topic of the day episode, whenever evening. We record at night. I never know if we should say evening, morning, afternoon. It's just one of those weird things.
It's the topic of the hour.
Topic, yeah, of the hour.
Yeah. The topic this is Ben's topic. So actually, Ben, why don't you tell us what we're talking about tonight?
It came about kind of organically because I was watching a promo for the show Animal Kingdom. For those that don't know, Animal Kingdom has been running for quite some time, I think, on AMC. And
Sean Hattasey.
I'm not sure. What?
Sean Hattasey is in it.
Yes. Well, so a lot of people don't even realize that show is actually based on an Australian film called Animal Kingdom, which is about a family that is kind of dedicated to a life of crime, for lack of a better explanation.
Didn't they live right off Lake Mungo?
Yes, they live right off Lake Mungo.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I know those guys.
Right.
Sometimes I remember that's not a fake movie, and that is a real movie that Nick had to watch.
Oh, it's real. And it happened on my shoe.
And to be clear, it's not Lake Mongo, which is what I kept telling Candace and Frank it was. It's Mungo.
It's Mungo Jerry.
Mungo Jerry. That was my mnemonic. That's why I'll never forget it. Is it because it's similar to a cat? And it's the sequel is Ocean Rumpelteazer.
But no, so
that's rough. That was rough.
But I was like, I still remember when I saw the movie Animal Kingdom. I was like, that's a very interesting depiction of a family, and I was just like, well, is it kind of really? And then I started thinking about kind of back through all of the serialized like television shows I grew up on. I was just like, wow, every family is kind of like the same in a way. So I want to talk about like what the family dynamic is and how that plays into pop culture, specifically about how it's represented on film and television, and sort of I think the evolution of it, because I think it's changed a whole lot now. We've gone from Leave It to Beaver to Breaking Bad. But I was interested in and I talked with my wife about it for a while too, and she said, she loved so many of these like TV families growing up, but they were so idyllic. She never found herself like represented or her family represented in anything that she ever saw on television. And that was like, I think that there was a certain archetype that was developed in film and television sort of in the 50s and 60s. And then you had some evolution, and then you had some weird outliers. But I think there's a pretty clear track where things evolved and changed and kind of where we are now. So that's kind of the topic. And I was interested in what you guys had as some of the interesting families that we've seen on film. And let's just start making every Fast and Furious joke we can now.
Nick, how many do you want to get out right now? I'll give you three. You get three.
No, I'll say one word and I'll cover two families. Tanners. Alf and Full House. The two families I grew up with the most. And the Tanners, Full House were a little more normal if like being able to afford a house in San Francisco is normal at this point. But like, think about Alf's family. You got this like classic nuclear family, and then an alien drops in, tries to fuck your daughter, eat your cat. It just basically disrespects you at every turn. And yet they didn't give him up. They gave him a roof under his head. They put up with all this bullshit. And then it ended when the CIA caught him.
I think
so
growing
I guess
up,
he got what he deserved.
I think growing up, the family I related to the most was the Huxtables, because after getting a stern talking to when I was 8, I didn't see color anymore. So
now, see, it's so sad. It's so sad. We can't really dive into the Cosby show.
First of all, Cosby is absolutely on here. So
I'm 100%. I'm 100% like being forthright when I say that I related to that family the most. I wouldn't say it modeled my family at all, but for some reason, the family dynamic of that family, which actually strangely tracked for like, I think that show had an effect on a lot of the families of the 90s shows, because I mean, the Cosby Show started in the 80s.
It's funny. Like the only one that I think the first time, like, because there was very much an evolution of how these go. Ben, you're talking the television sense. And there are kind of two different arcs in that, because you have the sitcom side of it, which is very much different than like kind of family drama side of it. But so much of the 80s and actually the 90s was like probably even more guilty of it. There seemed to be this idea that if we're going to be depicting families on television, they need to be teaching lessons to kids. So there was always like the joke about the very special episode of this and the very special episode of that.
Dinosaurs was what Beth brought up. She said she loved that as a family.
Mine was show. Roseanne, because Roseanne was the first time that they tried to break the mold, and it was like the house was messy. You know, like you never see that in a TV show. You didn't just see where like things were just laying around in a house.
Think about that. The Huxtables, I mean, one is a doctor and the other is a lawyer. They were loaded.
Oh yeah, very loaded, and they're like little brownstone in New York City.
Or was it New York?
Yeah, they're in Manhattan, and he runs the gynecologist's office out of the house. Like that's all business expense. Like they're I mean, they got money. They got money to burn.
Yeah, Full House was San Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting that and I think there was a strong backlash to that. I think that's how you get to things like Breaking Bad and some of these other deeper things as there was this turnaround when at the end of the 90s we all admitted how wrong it made us feel, like to have the messages and the fake sacre and all of that shit, and that was kind of starting to get phased out.
I think also, I mean, you're looking at that point, it was the late 90s when the divorce rate went above 50%. And it's just like, really, these families are again, it's like the idyllic, like this is the representation that people want to see, or they want. And then it's like, no, there's no representation there. There's no real diversity there. And so like you had shows like with black families, like Family Matters and Cosby Show, that had crossover appeal, like just massive crossover.
Fresh Prince,
Fresh Prince. Everybody watched those shows, but then you had Full House, or you had
the Torkelsons.
I do think that things change. Roseanne,
the opposite, the whitest family you could possibly find.
You did. You literally hit the other end of the spectrum. I think that is it. There is no one whiter than that. No whiter than the Torkelsons.
And it's funny, like when I knew what the topic was going to be, my first thought was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family, the quote unquote family, and then it was all TV. Everything that started coming to me as far as like memorable, meaningful families, it was always like a serial show that I tuned in every week and get to know the family a little more each episode. That's what kind of stuck with me. I mean, obviously there's families in every movie, but
but not every movie, but
mostly every movie.
Well, not really.
I'm saying it's an uncommon occurrence.
Okay, guys, we're gonna get past this one. Let's keep going. Go.
But I would say yes.
Judges ruling. Judges ruling. Are there families in films? Matt,
the fact that a character has a family in a film does not make that applicable.
Not unusual.
This is Mars Attacks.
This is like watching that court case with the guy in Milwaukee. Like
no, it is not. No, how dare you? No, it is not. None of us would be that disrespectful.
But let's get into film later.
I like staying on the TV. Well, and I think Nick, you hit part of it. A lot of it on the head is that you watch these characters from season to season. You watch them grow and change and evolve in a way that you can't really achieve on film unless you're doing Boyhood or something like that. You don't feel as lived in.
Another trope that was like, I think, unless Ben has an argument for me, one thing that happened more frequently in TV families, right, was the Urkel. Or like the Cody and Step by Step. They weren't necessarily family by blood, but they were sort of the next door neighbor that was indoctrinated into the family, and for better or for worse, they were grouped in with everybody else.
You already mentioned Alf, so
Alf.
Well, I mean that goes back to Beaver. You had Eddie Haskell in Leave It to Beaver. Was that like there were these Fonzie? Like those are all these characters that wind up stealing. I mean, a lot of the ones you said steal it. Cody's close to stealing it, but not quite as much.
I think he was actually related to, or it's like a.
Yeah, he might. But it's true. There's always this like wacky, ancillary person to the family that's someone that wasn't supposed to be in the show, and they didn't build them out in the dynamic, and then the audience was like, "That dumb thing is funny," and they're like, "Okay, that's now the show is
you got
Urkel."
you got Wilson in Home Improvement. To complement that family, very nuclear family.
Well, Wilson was at least built into that one from it always seems to be the ones that were the guest star. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
You got Cousin It in the Addams Family.
But I'm just saying, like, it's a little more traditional usually when you jump into things with film, and one thing that I think they realize is that you got your family, but it's just it became a trope because it's easy just to throw in an outlier, someone who's not like anyone else in the family, but somehow finds their way in. It gives you more freedom to come up with zany plots because maybe no one else in the family would get involved in the type of trouble that Urkel would get involved in, like, making a machine that turns him cool, or a time travel back to the pirate ship. Did we talk about this on an episode once?
I swear we got into this a little bit once.
Oh my God, it came on again. I rewatched it. It's absolutely the most batshit insane. He's like, "Oh, we got a dinner party. I have to get back to you, Steve. So I'll go time traveling with you to the pirate ship, but we have to be back by 5 p.m. for the family dinner." And they did. They made it back.
Nick, they laid out a proper conflict. They set out for their heroes to surmount that conflict and come out of it the other end. They fucking succeeded. That's why Reginald Val Johnson's still alive, eating off the profits that he made off of the Urkel show.
While we're on the Urkel subject, I have to say that the Urkel sketch on Key and Peele is the best thing that they ever did.
It's up there. I don't disagree.
I almost
pulled up that whole thing on here.
What the fuck is wrong with that?
God damn it, Gene!
I just love how Key and Peele just basically chalk anything that was popular between 1981 to 1997 to a ton of cocaine. Like nothing else happened.
I've done more cocaine than you weigh, motherfucker. I'm an actor.
I would also I want to throw in Clarissa Explains It All was a family that I loved. I loved Clarissa. I was always fighting with Ferguson. You got this evil, they played up like the sibling rivalry. And I gotta say Pete and Pete is probably one of my favorite families because they you know what, Matt? The house was always in order, and maybe they didn't ever have any strife, paying the bills or any real problems. But they do strike me as the first family was a kind of weird and embraced it and was supportive, knowing that they were different, and I think that resonated with me.
I mean Pete and Pete's getting later and later in the night. You start to see these shifts that are happening around that time. Maybe we link it to Batman the Animated Series and some of that idea of like we are going to start darkening and making things that feel maybe a little bit more organic, a little bit truer. They're not huge steps because we can't go too far into that, but like
but we're going to let Shirley Walker do the music and see where it goes. The Batman, the animated series method.
Bring it in.
It always works.
Yeah, I think that Pete and Pete was sort of the precursor to like Malcolm in the Middle and other stuff like that, where they were also just taking bigger swings creatively, and then honestly into something like Arrested Development or like some of the shows where you were looking at the most idiosyncratic families of all time.
Dude, I love Pete, literally tying Pete and Pete into Malcolm in the Middle. I think is 100. That's the exact arc. Because Malcolm in the Middle is another one that was felt more like it was like The Simpsons and Roseanne were combined, and now all of a sudden you've got a family that's like weird, but also it feels lived in. Like I think there's a difference. Some of that is also the laugh track. It's very hard to make something feel authentic and organic when you're playing for an audience track that's kind of guiding your emotions on that stuff. But once they got away from that and they went to the single camera stuff, I think that was another like big shift because Malcolm in the Middle was not, that was one of the first early adopters of single camera for sitcoms, especially.
No laugh track.
Was it really? That's cool.
Yeah, you had that. You had Larry Sanders didn't kind of counted, and Sports Night.
They had a laugh track.
No, I'm just talking about didn't have a laugh track. Were shot on single camera back when there was, but the big one, Sports Night, is the only one that had both a laugh track for a portion because the studio didn't trust it. And so they laid one in, and they were like, people do not like the laugh track, took the laugh track out, and then they got very confused.
I feel like as Matt was watching me on Zoom, he saw my eyes get as big as dinner plates. He's like, I better bring up Sports Night before this motherfucker, because he saw me getting ready.
So good.
He saw me getting ready.
So good.
Although not really but I am interested now in how
not really a family, right? We know. Sorry, we get off topic.
Not a family thing, but no. Again, though, like it is interesting that now we do have these very serious dramas and stuff like that with completely different. Like, of course, This Is Us. The whole thing is about this is a diverse family of characters that all have their own issues and their own problems and blah blah blah, and how that they're making, they're making their living on that type of shit now. Where it was like the complete polar opposite of what they were trying to present on network television in the 90s, which was just saccharine. And like this is, the idyllic, like I said, the perfect family and all of the conflict has to come from and things like that. It's not just like built in basically to the world. So TV's definitely changed a good bit.
I bet you guys can pick my favorite TV family. It was not network. That's your only clue.
I mean, not Arrested.
I thought you would have gotten this.
And it wasn't dinosaurs.
Oh, that's
I was gonna say Arrested or Dinosaurs.
Oh God, that's really good. You know what? It's second place. The Sinclairs get second place. That's such a good. I didn't even thought about that. God, that's a good answer. Like legit.
Yeah.
No, it's HBO show. It's not the
6 Feet Under.
Oh, 6 Feet Under.
The Fishers.
So
it's a great family dynamic.
Beth said that was the first family she could kind of relate to, and just because they were very weird and kind of like different, fucked up in different ways, So
have a mortician in the family.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think the only other one I want to mention, and then we can kind of move out to the film, is there was one really good outlier, I thought, or kind of, even though it was pretty saccharine, obviously, but I still think from a dynamic of what they were doing at the time that Family Ties is one of the most interesting family dynamics, and to do that in the 80s of like having the boomer like the liberal boomer parents that have the super conservative child. I'm like, we kind of need a Family Ties right now. Like that's something that could help us out. But that was a pretty brave thing
where
for
the
them
parents
to do.
cut off their son's credit cards and
Yes.
leave them to wallow in QAnon until they.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I want to see the show.
I agree.
I
No,
want.
that is, when you think about it, that is crazy. And
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a fun. I mean, I hate to say it would be a fun. It takes on a completely different meaning in today's political climate, but like to just go back, with no skin in the game and just watch. It's like it's very amusing that was the premise.
Well, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna split the
wouldn't say
difference
that
with you.
That wasn't the premise of Family Ties. It was more of like that was the character. Those were the characters of Family Ties.
Yeah,
Because
but
Family Ties.
yeah, but I mean, but it was the first time they were addressing that of the Vietnam generation growing up, and then they have kids, and then they're raising their kids, and their kids are being raised in Reagan era, and Reagan, and the kids are like, we love this Reagan guy, and the parents are like these old school hippies that they're on the other side. It's very apropos to doing something like that in today with what's going on, and I honestly don't think it's as far of a leap, Nick. Kind of from that idea of what it meant in the 80s to what it means now. That was a very big rising of weird values coming from the Republican Party at that time that were like sweeping people in there.
The funny thing is, if that family, if we checked in on that family right now, right, Alex P. Keaton, right now, and the hippie parents, what we've seen is like those hippie parents come back around, become conservative in their golden years, and then the son switches sides. I mean, that's kind of what we've seen more of. We've seen
That
those
sounds like my dad. That sounds like my dad's family.
Yeah, even the flower child, flower power hippie, they got very conservative over the years. The boomers are absolutely voting conservatively, but I just think that the more of the joke wasn't necessarily that even they had an opposing view between their teenage son and their full grown adult parents, but that the teenager was into politics at all. I mean, that was kind of what was played for laughs, is that he not only had his finger on the pulse of it, he was like,
he was
could
like
give you a lecture on Reaganomics.
He was a cultist of Reagan. Like he has pictures of Reagan in the house. And,
he would have been MAGA.
Like,
he definitely would have been MAGA.
Yeah, like it's interesting. And the parents are all like Nixon stuff, and he's just like, oh my god, it's very.
How do you
strange.
think his alcoholic Tom Hanks uncle would have voted?
Oh man, I love Alcoholic Hanks and Family Ties.
Alcoholic Hanks is a top tier episode of television.
All right, we got to get away from television because we're just going to continue down a very weird rabbit hole with this.
Alcoholic Hanks is my other ska band. I love it so much. I want to watch it tonight. Oh god, it's fun.
Gotta make sure that it doesn't come across as Alcoholic Yanks, because that's a Weird Al Yankovic glory hole that you can't afford.
If Weird Al wasn't straight edge, that's what would happen.
That just showed up in my XNXX browser history. So, Alcoholic Yanks.
That's a very creepy kink to go down.
It might be a little creepy, but I do like that we happen to know your porn site preference now because of that one throwaway joke. It's good to know. I'm gonna analyze it.
This is how we grow.
Tonight I'm gonna search for Alcoholic Yanks and see what comes up.
Plenty of research, I'm sure. Extensive research. You're like, what's past page 99? I don't know. Never before.
No man has ever gone past page 99. That's where all the real deviant shit lies. Past page 99. Page 99. Ska band.
We've got 3 for 3.
But honestly, like, so the whole entryway into this whole topic though really began, like I said, when it started with the Animal Kingdom thing. I was thinking about the movie Animal Kingdom, and I was like, oh wow, it's so different. Like the way that the families have been presented over the years. But I just started thinking about all of these families that I kind of grew up with, in movies. because I didn't really watch that much TV. And I came back to, I think I realized I grew up with like the ideal family, or at least the one that was presented to me was in all of the John Hughes movies, because John Hughes was basically kind of formative in both, like we're talking about Vacation, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink,
Vacation,
even Home Alone, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris.
Yeah, like these families, they all had very specific feelings for each movie, but there was a very like clear central family unit in all of these movies. And I had a relatively broken childhood. I did not have access to that, but I loved all of those movies a ton. So I felt like that was the ideal that I was sort of striving for, was all of these like, you know, John Hughes, Metro Chicago area families, cis white families.
Yeah. I mean, that for me, it was the Vacation movies. Like we had moments that there was a large portion of my young years where I literally thought those movies were based on like stories that happened they tapped in of like, oh, this happens to all these families, and I'm like, that guy's happened to you guys? Or like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh yeah, we've had a lot of these moments, you know, not like a dead grandma or like taking a dog down the road or anything like that, but a lot of the other things ring very, very close to home.
I never had a close relation, but you've said that in the past, that basically like that felt kind of like your childhood. And I think that's pretty amazing, because I've never seen anything that like kind of I could relate to as far as like my childhood was concerned.
There was a lot of like,
I mean, especially in those days.
Well, I'm curious, like, I don't know when was the last time you watched a Vacation movie, but I'm curious what you would feel watching that now that you're like going on road trips with a family and a lot of people.
Well, I will say that the hardest that my wife and I laugh is our daughter's name is Margot, and so she asks a lot of questions all the time, which sometimes prompts us saying, "I don't know, Margot," and then we realize we're quoting Christmas Vacation, and every time it happens, we just end up just falling on the floor laughing so hard, just like it just comes out naturally, like, "I don't know, Margot." So, but by that metric, I think that I can definitely relate to some of the stuff as far as the family things are concerned. I still don't think that I've really found. I will say that the film from about 10 years ago, The Kids Are All Right, with Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo and who am I forgetting? Annette Bening.
Yeah.
Or the main leads. Yeah. I would say that reminds me a lot of the characters in that remind me of my late stepfather's family. Like they remind me of my stepsisters and their families. Just because they're all grown up, competent people that are complicated and things like that. But as far as like, there's nothing I really related to. There's stuff I always wanted to be like, but again, it was more of the John Hughes. I wanted to be part of those families, you know.
Mine's probably Succession,
which you haven't probably even watched yet.
So
I'm working on it.
This is gonna sound very terrible, but one of the first ones that popped in my head when I was thinking of like the idea of us relating to families was it popped in as a joke at first, and then something settled into a truth about it. But I thought of Hereditary, and some of the parental dynamics between the grandmother and the daughter, and then the daughter and her son. I was like, oh yeah. Other than all that other stuff that happens, the rest of this, that's why like the director said like, I didn't make a horror movie. I just made a movie about a family, and I was like, I completely understand this. So that is a very familiar dynamic for me.
But don't lose your head about it, Matt. I'm sure other people will probably relate to you too.
Oh God. Well, let me throw that a few of the families though that really stuck out to me though from everything I was watching when I was younger. I remember being really jealous of the family in E.T. Like I was really jealous of that family. and there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where they're just having pizza at like
the penis breath
the
scene.
table. Yeah, well, so it's just one static shot, but it's like Robert Altman. It's like everybody is talking over one another and everybody's laughing and having a fun time, but it's still so chaotic. And I was just like, I was raised as an only child. I was like, I wanted that so bad. Like I wanted this, like where everybody is like kind of, you know, like knocking each other down a peg, but also everybody's like you can tell everybody loves each other and they're all on the same level. But I was going to say, I think that really gives a movie like E.T. a real kind of grounded central, like a heart to that movie. It starts right at the very beginning when it has this minute-long scene where it's a static camera and you see this family interacting with one another, and all of a sudden you know who they are, and that basically sets up everything that you need to know for the rest of the movie. So I was going to say, in a case like that, this is also another chance to make a Fast and the Furious joke of where like establishing this family concept actually, you know, it basically kind of paves the way for for the narrative that's to come. And in a movie like E.T., I think it's super, super, super effective.
Well, and you have the mirror of that family in Poltergeist. I literally that was I had my Poltergeist and ET as the polar opposites. They're the same coin, just opposite sides.
And but the great thing about Poltergeist, I mean, the parents are like kind of potheads and they're like ex-hippies, but all of the kids are super relatable and fun, and the teenage girl is kind of an asshole, but is a fun asshole, and everybody loves each other, and there's a really interesting dynamic that they set up in Poltergeist. But no, I literally like Poltergeist is on my list right here of like the things I really
that family like a lot
really
of those
related
ones
to as a kid.
Yeah, those ones felt kind of real to me as well. Like anytime there was kind of the younger sibling, older sibling kind of that dynamic, and Poltergeist really does that. I mean, E.T. and Poltergeist both do it like to huge effect, and I would always definitely respond to those things.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, in Poltergeist, like all the people who are doing work on the house keep hitting on the teenage daughter, and she like just keeps flipping them off and being like an asshole to her. I was just like, that's great. Like just little stuff.
It's not great.
Things, no. I don't mean that.
Unsavory.
I meant that. What
disturbing?
Basically,
okay.
What they're doing though is they're establishing. Okay, woke asshole.
Horrifying.
I'm saying it, we agree with all of this.
By the way, I need to apologize to our audience. I'm not sure what you guys are hearing on your end versus what's happening over here on my end, but
chaos.
Time is operating at different intervals between all three of us, and what's happening over here is very strange. So I'm mostly apologizing to the people listening that have had to go on this same fever trip that I've been hearing in my headphones.
I'll accept an apology.
But it's there's gonna be some problems. Just gonna letting you know.
Can I quote Antichrist?
Yes.
Chaos reigns.
Okay.
It sounded underwater. Could
yeah,
you hear that,
I heard a which I thought sounded.
It sounded like we used to play Fluffy Bunny in college.
I said Chaos Reigns. Okay. By the way, great family movie, Antichrist.
Fluffy Bunny ska band. Is that a band? That's got to already be a band, right?
I'm assuming there probably is a band called Fluffy Bunny.
I think
Matt?
it's the fake band that they're going to see in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Is it really?
I think it might be Fluffy Bunny.
Oh my God, no way. Did that stick in my subconscious?
That sounds right, though.
It's something like that, I think. But I don't know.
Every time I match with a Nora on online dating, I say, want to make an infinite playlist. And every time the line doesn't work. But guess what? I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep doing it.
How many Noras have you met?
Probably like 6, and not a single one.
He could have been with Nora Ephron many years ago, and instead just gave her a sassy comeback she wasn't ready for.
I'm sorry. I mean, what else am I supposed to say? I don't know this person from Eve. It's a perfect end.
Turn down
What else
college,
am I
Nora.
supposed
You
to
could
say
turn down
as
college,
if
Nora, so now you
the
have to use
only
the-
thing you can do is that?
Correct. But you understand then. You get me. Anyway, sorry.
Oh my lord.
Fluffy bunny.
No.
I will say, back on
Fluffy bunny.
the family dynamic, I do think that animated films tend to do very well. And by the way,
Sure.
guys,
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
that was my
something.
next step.
So Ben and Nick, I'm gonna pause us and
wow.
get
Oh,
us
no.
back in. We're so out of sync. So I'm gonna turn us off and you guys just hop back on the call and we're gonna reset here and then I'll fix the audio on the other
Oh
side.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Or you guys can be listening at home while I do this live. All right, they're gone from the podcast. So now I can say whatever I want. I'm the star. Sir?
Okay.
Yep, got you on. Wait for Nick. Yeah, the sync got like really bad because it was like Nick and I were kind of in sync, and then you were outside of all three, and it was getting bad. We'll figure it out. It's going to make for a very interesting little middle portion of this episode.
Oh my god, that sounds crazy. I noticed at one point Ben, the audio seemed in time, but Ben was like,
There's a lot of like Ben will be like, and I because it's like trying to catch up. So it sounds just like he's really I love the audio version of this because they can't see what's happening. So it just sounds like Ben all of a sudden got like a little jolt of cocaine.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm really excited about Family Matters.
well, to be fair, he is.
All right, we are back. We are on the air.
We're recording. We're recording.
We've
now?
been recording all of this. I'm going to figure out what
Oh.
you guys might have just heard a whole little sketch of all kinds of stuff.
Are you still hearing weirdness?
No, you guys are good.
All right. So Mitchell's versus the Machines, right?
Yes,
Is that where we're going?
I was
Yes,
absolutely
yes.
about to go to Mitchell's
Okay.
versus the
All right.
Machines.
There
All
we
right,
go.
great.
Please,
We're back, baby.
You got me into that movie. I was late to that one. But wow, just what a phenomenally well drawn, pardon the pun, family dynamic. Like everything about it just is so satisfyingly great.
You get a lot of father son. You get a lot of mother son. You don't get a whole lot. Maybe just me, but I don't feel like you get a whole lot of father daughter. And
It's a very common complaint in Alabama about porn.
I found it very heartwarming and special in this animated child's film.
Now we know what's past page 99.
Yeah, no. But like, first off, you get the animation team behind Spider-Verse, so you're getting a really fun movie to watch. But it fired on some very emotional cylinders, and getting a performance out of Danny McBride that I thought was probably the most three-dimensional role that he has ever played. If you ask me,
I think it's unquestionable that it was
Yeah.
the best,
Yeah.
the most diverse emotional role that he's ever played.
What
Yeah, I bought it.
and I like kind of these what they do in animation, and we're seeing more of it. And I think a lot of it is now kind of going full circle to kind of that Spielbergian stuff that we were looking at in E.T. And there was always this dynamic in these families of something off. Like in E.T., we don't ever see where the dad is. That's like a big Spielberg trope to do that, and kind of all of that side of stuff. But like it's very interesting with all of this right now.
Listen, I almost feel like we should have had Frank on this podcast because I have sat through not one, not two, not three, at least 4 or 5 spiels just on the father from E.T. and what is his deal. And Frank could have wrote a college thesis on the amount of thoughts he has backed up on this one specific topic.
Well, and I think you kind of see that happening in these animated films. I think you have something like Inside Out has a really interesting dynamic with the mom and the dad and the daughter. Even though the whole movie is from the daughter's aspect, you're learning about this family and seeing these things there. And then you have
never seen that.
It's I think it's great. I'm super into it. And then
it's good. I wouldn't say it's great in my opinion, but yeah.
And then you go
Pixar.
into something like Encanto, which we've talked about in here, which is looking at a very specific family dynamic that is all about community, but also the strife that sometimes happens in that, and that kind of idea of inheritance and feeling separate and stuff. I think there's really interesting things that are being done in these animated films that are geared towards families, but are about families, of kind of giving those struggles a voice so that when kids and parents are watching, maybe they can have some kind of dialogue about that.
But there aren't many families in film, though, Matt. I think you're actually wrong on that.
Oh,
God
man.
Sorry.
You're just gonna.
I still have a little devil in me from All Hallows Eve.
Well, and then I think there's also to get into the somewhat of the Fast and Furious of it all. There is also the idea of
or if you want to talk about the we're choosing our own family.
Yes,
family
there
film.
we go.
I
Ben
mean,
knows where I was going.
Okay, the Goonies. Let's say this is our family.
Oh, you mean these guys right here? My little Goonies
I
family on my shirt.
I love how you set up like the Internet of Things, the IoT, the FF, the Fast and Furious of things, the FFOT.
The Fast and Furiousness of it is
the Fast and
of
Furious of things, FFOT. That's claimed. We're using that now from now on.
But yes,
right,
you have these ideas of these families that you are assembling yourself. Your Avengers families. Yes,
Avengers
very much.
assemble.
That's right.
Your own family.
But yeah, and then you have also, I mean, I like a lot of, it's weird. All of the dysfunctional families were the ones that kept like showing up on mine. I'm like, oh, the family in American Beauty. It's like super dysfunctional. And I'm like, yeah, these are things, this is not my life. I have not lived this, but I feel
ironically, if I had to, that movie came out in 2000, so I was almost in college by that time. But I was raised as an only child with a mother and a step parent. But the family dynamic, like the table dynamic of my life, was probably most reflective of that movie, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
and it's probably the reason why I didn't want I'm glad that my mom and my stepdad got divorced when I was 18. But it was not a pretty atmosphere, but I love that movie. I mean, I unabashedly love that movie because I don't see a whole lot of single kid films like where there's only one child, and
very true.
It was super attracted to that actually when I was watching the movie. I was like, wow, that it's really interesting that they have like an only child dynamic that's going on there.
And they have enough story that they don't need the addition of the sibling dynamic.
Well, the nuclear family became a thing, It's like you gotta have these pieces,
like two kids, or you have to have three kids or whatever. But no, I think that the fact that there is only the only child, it informs the characters that Kevin Spacey and Annette Bening play so much.
They realize something. That maybe they shouldn't have another kid together. And
or
they were right on not acting on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think it's really kind of interesting.
And you also have the Fitz family across the street. Also, is a whole other family dynamic that's being put on display in that film as well. That's kind of mirroring everything there. And again, another single kid.
Only child.
Yeah, only child.
How many kids did Jimmy Pesto have in Bob's Burgers?
3.
Did he have 3? Okay, I like those families across the street from each other, Bob's Burgers and Jimmy Pesto.
Yeah,
although
that's a pretty good one.
Rest in peace, Jimmy Pesto.
Yeah, and of course you also have like The Simpsons and things like that. Like we're talking about animated on TV,
Family Guy,
and Family Guy shows that definitely played with the whole family. I think that those both were reflective of the family dynamic, but also kind of played to those tropes. I mean, I know that obviously the Simpsons was the first to do it. They absolutely played on the family tropes and kind of made fun of some of the shows that were on around their same time or that they were contemporaries with when they first came out.
You know what show had a single child that ran on Fox?
A lot.
What?
My Two Dads.
Get a Life with Chris Elliott, who was a single child as the adult. He was like, what, 37 years old, live with his real life dad.
Well, I do like, American Dad steals a bit of the family ties trope of having the super right wing dad with the hippie daughter, but except that was the trope before it was a trope. So it's like, that's going back to like the Archie Bunker stuff. Like it's kind of crazy the cycle of all that.
But
stuff.
also like having the super right wing dad with the kid daughter, like for example, that was like the Donnie Darko family. I love that family in film.
That dinner scene, that one actually, that I feel that one. I feel a lot for that.
Yeah. I'm voting for Dukakis, right? Exactly. when the government's trying to take half your husband's paycheck, and she's like, my husband's paycheck, and the mom is like, yeah, like she got you there. That was a very
that dynamic is amazing.
Family.
And I mean, the easiest conflict to write into a show or a movie that has a family in it is just that the parents are at odds with the kids, because that's how it normally works. I mean, you could have a child who goes into adulthood and then their values all of a sudden start reflecting that of their parents during their formative years. But in the moment, as a rebellious teenager, you're just going to go with whatever the opposite is, whether that be political or music or anything. Just the easiest path to conflict.
Very true.
Right. Yeah. I ran away from Roxy Music as fast as I possibly could.
But now you're back.
But now you're back.
Roxy Music is awesome. I only recently
fucking great.
I was like, man, that's good. Anyway.
Well, and one that's always on my list, or like I think of kind of the family dynamic, is also in Back to the Future.
Of course.
Because you get to see this history of like the mom and the dad, and that idea of like, really what are the personalities of these people if they were in the same class and generation.
And that was the absolute most unadulterated, purest origin of that film. It wasn't to make a sci-fi movie or to explore time travel. It was just the premise of what would you be friends with your parents if you were the same age growing up in the time that they did?
I still think that is the most fascinating question ever. I really do.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to wrap my brain around.
Well, but and that's who was it? It wasn't Steve. Who was the original screenwriter for
Bob Gale and
Bob Gale?
Yeah,
no, it was Bob Gale's idea. He was like, "Hey, if I met my dad," because he said he saw a picture of his dad in
the yearbook,
and said, "Would I have been friends with him?" And be like, "Oh no, that's the movie right there," and which is really, really super interesting. Which I can say definitively with my dad, yes, I would have been friends with my dad. I probably would have thought he was way too cool.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been friends with my dad.
Maybe my dad would have been in our band, Ben.
Probably.
Wow, that's trippy.
I may not have liked him, but maybe he would have been in the band.
You liking somebody wasn't a prerequisite for them being in the band.
That's true. Just to make beautiful music, baby.
That's all we were there to do, was to create memories and make.
I hate you, but look,
I know. Of course.
It's like going to war in the trenches, throw that away
every time. Every time.
Do you have I love that you brought up the Darko family. That was not one I've been thinking about, and now I just can't. Man, that's amazing.
I was thinking that ahead of the podcast, and it 100% escaped my mind. It was never going to find its way back if you didn't bring it up. But I agree.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember listening to the commentary track on that too, and basically Richard Kelly's whole thing was, he was like, no, we want to establish that this family's a little different or a little off from other families, because like where, within 30 seconds he's like, well, you can go suck a fuck.
How does one suck a fuck?
And that's not like setting off the parents that much. Just like, clearly this has happened around the dinner table before.
That is a great lived-in dynamic. It's another very much to the ET thing of like setting up everything you need to do in a very short amount of time.
Well, which is one of the, like, again, anytime you have a pretty well-established family dynamic that's going to be in film, you have to kind of establish what the stakes are early and who they are early, I think, in order to make it effective. And again, I'll recommend Animal Kingdom because I think that's a really great movie. It plays on the family dynamic a lot, especially considering it just throws you into this kind of life of crime, and it throws you right in the middle of it with very little introduction. It very quickly establishes the dynamics of like the matriarch and who's in charge and like what their roles are within this like crime organization. And it's really super effective when it does that. But again, I think we've moved a lot further that direction this in sort of most recent TV in this generation of TV with Breaking Bad,
Ozark,
with that family.
I also want to throw in the Weirs.
And there are
things. Ooh,
there's also
I like that.
of course the Weirs started out as something that felt more like caricature, and then obviously as the season went on, the one season they became a little bit more fully rounded characters for sure.
The one thing that always got to me was
Weeds.
like, oh yeah, Weeds for sure.
What were you saying, Nick?
Weeds is a really interesting family dynamic.
Yeah, a lot of that dynamic is entrenched in the plot too, which helps, I think. The one thing I like about the Weirs and Freaks and Geeks, I don't think that there was really one family that I can point to that I was like, oh yeah, it's like looking in a mirror. But one thing that they really nailed was that like Lindsay and Sam, Sam are they have a sibling rivalry. They give each other a lot of shit, but at the end of the day, they were very close. They really loved each other, and I felt a lot of that with my relationship with my sister. In them, that there was no shortage of shit talking and mischief, but at the end of the day, like they would have really stood up for each other.
Yeah, they would have gone to bat for each other.
Sure. And it took place in the 80s, so like that also a lot of that felt more familiar. My dad was nothing like the dad in the Weirs. Like just a caricature. Owned a sports sporting goods store and was like always on the grind. That was very different as a family with two educators, but you don't see any shows with dual educators, right? I can't think of a single one that
where would they live?
Teacher.
They can't afford to be in like anywhere that they can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where are you going to shoot this?
I don't know how they made it work.
Yeah, that's really I don't see that show happening.
Yeah.
It did. No. It did happen.
It was canceled.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see these people.
You have also, I think there's the aspect also that there are these movies that we watched when we're younger and then watching them now. And one that people like to talk about a lot is Mrs. Doubtfire, where you've got a movie where when you're younger, you watch it and it's like you're rooting for Robin Williams. And then you watch it as an adult and you're like, I don't think this guy should be around these children.
Yeah, there's a family. It's a family story for sure.
Oh! You know what?
I have mixed feelings about Miss Doubtfire, but yeah,
I changed it. I think Christmas Story, the Christmas Story family, is probably the closest for me, for sure.
Yeah, let's probably just. Yeah, that's a really good one.
And end it on. Yeah, you're not wrong. The old man in the Christmas Story is everyone's old man.
It is November 1st, which means now you can put a Christmas Story on one channel for the next 2 months, and it's going to be completely apropos, right?
And now I guess we're getting Ralphie's family. We'll get to see how his family turned out in the new HBO.
My life.
I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, I listen. I liked his attempt at the Gene Shepard voice as adult Ralphie. I appreciate that. We'll see what happens. Could be,
we'll see what
happens.
Terrible.
I got nothing but good things to say about Peter Billingsley, but I don't know. I don't know about this one.
I don't know.
You sent me the link. You sent me the link, Matt, and it was just like it was one clip of adult Ralphie, and the rest were just like,
oh, Nick, you have not watched the new trailer?
Oh God, it's out.
Oh, it's out. Yeah, when I was saying he's doing the Gene Shepard voice, he's doing the Gene Shepard voice.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I that clocked for me.
Yeah.
I think I was just like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, you're in for it. That came out today.
Oh no.
Yeah,
it's
not
good, huh?
I liked his adult voice, but some of the other things I didn't. It was.
I want you to go back and get that drop, but you just like it was like this very unsure giggle.
Can I recommend it? I don't know. Probably not.
Please get that drop. That's all I'm
I will attempt to get that drop. I like him. I hope he does something that has some heart in it, and I hope it's not.
Well, yeah,
awful.
It'll have all the trappings. You know, we know that much, and it's such an important family for so many families.
Yeah.
To just do a cash grab and make something really bad could sting a little. It could sting a little, but hey, nothing's sacred. We have to be able to just, consume these things like mindless zombies and not let them affect our happiness, right, Matt?
Yeah. Well, yeah. On that note,
says Nick, the biggest fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I made my peace with that.
Oh boy.
And Game of Thrones, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Oh boy. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up our discussion on not family films, but families in films or television. But we hope you enjoyed this episode of The New Way. We are getting closer and closer to episode 200.
But we didn't talk about families and podcasts. I think we got to put ourselves right up there at number 1, baby.
We are definitely number 1.
This is a family that we chose.
I'm sorry, we're second to the Joe Rogan Experience, but then us, Then us,
number 2.
Number 2. 2's a good place.
I think that he's just part of the Fast and Furious family.
He is. I think so. He looks just like the same guy.
Yeah.
In spirit.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time. I'm gonna say cheers.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
What?